Morning. It is 8:01 on a Saturday morning. It is August 9th, and this is Coffee Talk. How you doing? Hope you're having a great start to the day. It's a beautiful one. The skies are sunny, but of course, there are things to track. And out to the tropical satellite, I'm going to start again today with the tropics because, just like we have been chatting the last couple of days, there are several areas to monitor. There's Invest 96 in the central Atlantic, should be recurving, low threat for development. That development chance continues to drop and it's not as much of an interest item, thankfully. However, the one coming off the coast of Africa is. Let's take a look. It is not an invest, it is simply a tropical wave that's getting its sea legs just off the shoreline there of Africa, south of the Cabo Verde Islands, but it has a rising threat of tropical development, now up to a 40% chance of formation over the next 7 days' time. This is the area that we have been monitoring for the last several days here on Coffee Talk. This is the area that we're going to need to watch very closely. Now, we don't have computer models running on this just yet. It is not an invest. I would suspect today or tomorrow this becomes an invest, and then, of course, becomes something that we need to deal with. Yeah. When I say deal with, keep in mind, I mean like track. Um, I've got a pretty good confidence here that this is going to become something of a tropical storm or even a hurricane. Where it's going to go, however, um, is anybody's guess. And I've seen hurricane threat on social media. We're in hurricane season. Of course, there's going to be hurricanes that are going to be forming. Where they go is everything, and we can't know that just yet. So let's track this. We're going to look at all the model data together and let's get an idea of where it's going. First and foremost, let's go back and look at the satellite imagery. I'm going to pop up a different version of the satellite imagery. First off, let's just start with the visible. All right, you can kind of see that counterclockwise spin there, right? It's just rolling, at least its core is just rolling off the coast of Africa. So at this point, I'll bring it full screen. At this point, it's just too early to be able to tell anything really from it. We switch over to the high resolution infrared satellite imagery. It's going to take it a while. I always say it's going to take it a while for it to get its sea legs, but basically, it's just going to be starting to bubble up that convection, okay? So for now, we watch it and kind of see. To give you an idea, all right, how much time we have to track this thing. It's like 12, 13, 14 days from any potential of reaching the United States. There it is, kind of bottom right corner of the screen there. So there's a ton of time for it to move. And in terms of where we think it's going to develop, it's going to develop in the kind of, say, weeks to week and a half's time out. All right. So plenty of time to watch this. Next name on the list, should it become, is Aaron. I am never the guy that says, like, this is gonna be Aaron, tracking what will be Aaron, because you just don't know when something else tries to form. But the next name, whatever the next storm system is, the next name on the list is Aaron. So there it is. It's going to take it a couple of days before it perhaps even tries to start forming. But what happens as it starts to form? Let's look at the models, shall we? Let me take this. I'm going to put this into the full basin view. Now, actually, I put it into the central Atlantic. There's it already by Tuesday afternoon, rolling through, getting stronger out in the open Atlantic, approaching the Lesser Antilles as a pretty good looking hurricane, frankly, north of the Antilles. All right, here it's into our kind of closer view, lifting up, recurving, and staying out to sea. This is the American GFS model. I love when a storm recurves and not only stays out to sea from us, but also stays out to sea from everyone. Like there's New England. This run of the model would keep it off the shoreline there of the Outer Banks, off the shoreline of New England, and just recurve it. And as it recurves it, it kind of just weakens in the North Atlantic. Okay. So very important. I'll just back this up. Timeline for it passing us would be August 17th, 18th, 19th, 20th, 21st. Okay. That's one run of one model, okay? Let's go back one run in the GFS, and it's closer and goes into the Carolinas. Let's go back two runs of the GFS, further away. Three runs of the GFS, sneaks through the Straits of Florida, and then heads into the Gulf. So the last three runs, and I'll go back to the current run, the last three runs have kept it East Coast and off the shoreline. Okay? That's let's see if it's a trend. Remember, when it comes, I've got all these cheesy sayings, right? But when it comes to computer models, trends are your friends, right? So there's that. So that's the deterministic or single run of the GFS. We'll look at ensembling in a minute. Let's come back. We'll hit the basin. We'll come over to the European, and let's just kind of get a scan of what the European's saying. So there it is into the Central Atlantic. That's this upcoming Thursday. All right. Come back to the Caribbean view because it's starting to get into that. That's as far as the 6Z of the euro goes. I have to go back to the 0Z to get any further. Recurving and staying just off the shoreline of the Outer Banks. That's the 0Z. Let's go back to the 12Z, which would be the last full run. And it's in almost the same spot. So we've now started, we've got three runs of the GFS keeping it east of us. The European model keeping it east of us. But you notice, I mean, that's the signature there of a big bad hurricane. That minimum central pressure is 947 millibars. That's a pretty significant storm there. Let's hope it stays offshore from anybody and just gives rough surf and rip currents. All right, let's go back to the basin view. Let's look at the Euro AI model. There it is developing north of Puerto Rico. We'll come in a little closer. Look at it doing its recurvature. Let's make sure it stays off the shoreline of the northeast. Love that. Let's hope that stays. Remember though, we're looking at 300 so hours out. Its Florida passage is still 252 hours out. So a lot can and will change with that. And notice there's another something after it. Not as strong, but there's another signal of something there after it. All right. All right, let's go to the basin view and let's check out the Canadian model. There it is. Canadian model keeping it east of us. The icon only goes out 120 hours, so don't get too excited. It'll go out to 180 for 0Z, and it's doing its thing. So at this point in time, UK Met, yeah, much further out. Okay, all right. So at this point in time, what we're essentially looking at is a rising concern that a storm develops, but the concern overall is still very low because consistency is just starting to come into play. And at the end of the day, it's just too early to determine where anything goes. Ensembles. Here's the GFS ensembles. Notice they're fairly well clustered. Now, they're fairly well clustered through here. You see on the right side, there's it's like a ball, and it's not until they start to spread out that the consistency drops. So there's a fairly decent say idea that it's from about the Virgin Islands up to Bermuda. And then here we start to see that consistency vary, right? You see that ball spreading. So the idea by about through about the 16th, 17th, through about 200 hours, the consistency is there, the confidence is there. Afterward, the hornets start to spread out. So the confidence in that forecast starts to wane a bit. All right, so let's come back here. That's the current run of the GFS. Let's go back one run. Same idea. Let's go back two runs. Same idea. So I think the idea is that it's going to be probably north of the Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico, but after that is when things start to spread out and we don't know yet. So it's still too early to really tell you where this thing will end up being. I think that at this point in time, we've got a pretty good idea there's going to be a storm, right? but in terms of where it actually ends up going, it's just a little too early to determine that, okay? So that's kind of where that's at. That's the American model, that's the GFS. Let's switch over to the European ensembles. All right. The European ensembles are nice and tight through about 198 hours. And that's why we always say, like, when you get outside of 200 hours, the models don't really know what they're doing. They just don't, there's too many variables, right? But they're tightly packed, and then they start to really spread by the 19th and the 20th. The vast majority of the ensembles do bring it close to the Carolina coast and even to, kind of the mid Atlantic coast. I'd say the vast majority of them keep off the shoreline. But, if I was in the Carolinas, if I was in the Northeast, I'd definitely be watching it just as much as us Floridians need to be watching it, right? So that's the Euro. Let's go back one full model run. And this is a good example. So look at the clustering. This is the 0Z. See how that cluster is there? Let me go back one. Look at how broad it becomes. See how much broader it is? So that's our 210 versus this being our 198. So the consistency is getting there into the Caribbean, but afterward it starts to spread a little bit. All right. All right. Euro AI ensembles. It's not as tightly packed here, and it definitely gets wider. So the GFS and even the European are a little tighter than the Euro AI, but the Euro AI is what it is. Canadian ensembles. Not really doing much at all. So there's that. All right. So that's kind of where we're at, my friends. We're definitely tracking a system that's probably going to want to put back the GFS ensemblage. Definitely going to want to develop. And we've got a pretty good idea that it's going to want to recurve probably outside of the Lesser Antilles. But once it gets closer to us, you can see that model spread starts really widening out. I would say that the vast majority of the ensembles have shifted a little more to the east, up to about 200 hours, up through about Monday, August 18th. But afterward, we have to see how that all plays out, right? Right? Paul Andrews on YouTube says, I'm on a sailboat in Massachusetts, Maine. Definitely watching. Appreciate if you cover this going north. Paul, I got you, buddy. I'll cover it. Absolutely. Yeah. And as I said a couple of moments ago, you know, y'all need to be watching this just as much as we do down here in the South. Absolutely, we do. You know, Kier's asking about the icon model. So I believe that's only storm specific, and it doesn't go out far. That's the icon goes out. That's 120. That's one. The icon goes out 180 hours. So that's all we've got for icon. Just for perspective, it's not as long of a range model. Lucas is asking Dorian Part Two. It doesn't work that way. Because I could say it's Bertha, it's Floyd, it's Aaron. There's a lot of storms that do all of these paths. But right now, and if you look this season in particular, I just feel like it gets worse every year. And I know that this is my high horse I hop on, but like colleagues in meteorology with degrees are posting hype. And it's like, yeah, don't do that. So trust the ensembles like this tell the real story. The consistency here is showing that it's probably going to stay at the moment. Confidence is growing that it stays outside of the Caribbean. Then it starts to recurve. The question is exactly at what point, right? You could see some of those left side ensembles want to have it kind of recurving over Florida into the Gulf, whereas a lot of them are along the shoreline or out. So we'll get more and more confidence on this, right? Notice the confidence that's right here through Sunday, through, that's 189 hours out. Once you get there's 201, watch how here's 201. Watch just beyond this. That's when it all starts spreading. So outside of 200 hours is really when ensembles start shifting around and getting weaker and weaker in that consistency. And remember, consistency breeds confidence, and trends are your friends, right? So remember that, okay? Lucas says, "Oh no, I got him started." Yeah, that's the way it goes. All right. So that said, questions about this. I see that there's roughly 1,000 people watching our stream live this morning, and I want to welcome those of you that are new. There's a lot of terrible information on social media when it comes to the tropics. I promise you, my goal here, my simple goal, is going to be to track storms in an absolutely no hype way. Okay? Mickey, once it becomes an invest and recon goes in, then we should start having a really good idea on what the storm may do. Yeah, so I would suspect that it probably becomes an invest today or tomorrow, but it's way too far out for recon to get in. It's still days and days from recon going in there. Okay, you can see that's where it is on the bottom left corner. It's just emerging off of the coast of Africa at this point in time. So you're not going to get recon for a week or so. All right. Amanda, will this potentially impact flying on the 19th, New Jersey to Florida? Well, there's the 17th. 18th, 19th, I wouldn't think that it's going to impact a flight in that time frame, but let's stay dialed in. That's about all we can do. All right. When will you predict it will hit North Carolina and South Carolina? I don't know that I'll predict that. We have to watch and kind of see how this plays out first, right? Mickey's asking about the Google AI model. Okay. I think stand by. If I do this, I'm gonna try this. No promises that this works. Yeah. All right, let me try and log in. Yes, I know. All right. Hold on. Let's see here. Doing this for you people. 736,811. All right. Okay. The Google AI stuff. All right. So this is the Google AI model stuff. I haven't looked at it a ton, admittedly, but let's look at it together. All right. And let's do. So I mean, there's the ensemblage, right? We're starting, you can kind of see our experimental model. We stop, go back. Okay, so there it is. So you can see, I mean, its ensemble spread is all over the place. So there you go. There's the Google AI model, all over the place. But very similar to the Euro AI model, very similar to the GFS model, all that stuff is very similar. All over the place. All over the place is all over the place, right? So that's kind of your idea. That's kind of your idea. All right. Questions, comments, concerns about the tropics before we move into our local forecast. All right. Going once, going twice, going 3 times a lady. All right. All right. So back here at home, let's talk about it with our 7-day forecast. I'll pop the smaller box on. All right, so for today, 91 degrees our high temperature. It's going to be a stormy day, 70% coverage. We're going to keep things stormy through Monday, though rain chances back off for the upcoming work week a little bit. And we get some more heat building in, a 94, 95 degree high temperature. I would add that I'll be with you on Wesh 2 News Sunrise next week. They did a promo. I posted it yesterday. There you go. There you go. So join us next week. Make your new routine hanging out with the Sunrise crew. At any rate, let's take a look at the rain coverage for us today and this week. Here's today, starting off nice and quiet. We'll bring it full screen. 10, 11, by about 12 o'clock, starting to see a couple storms. 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, widespread showers and storms. 3, 4 o'clock, right, getting going. 5 o'clock out west, and then kind of pushing off the shoreline. So it's going to be a stormier day. Definitely going to be early afternoon stuff as opposed to evening stuff. So at least you got that going for you. All right. So that's kind of what we're looking at, my friends. All right. Questions, comments, concerns, anything? Anything at all? Thank you, Nancy. Be good. Luis says, I didn't get any rain yesterday in Fern Park. What did I get at the house? Stand by. I'm looking Tempest. It's loading. Stand by. We got about 4/10 of an inch, almost a half an inch yesterday. All right. Taylor, can you show tomorrow afternoon? All right. Needy much? All right, stand by. Full weekend. All right. So we've got today covered. Storm's getting going. Works out west. Tomorrow, looking good in the morning. 1:30, 2 o'clock, showers popping, getting into widespread storms. And everything's working out west. So there you go. All right. We good? Questions, comments, concerns? We looking good? Mickey's asking, are the storms going to be moving slow like yesterday? I'm assuming a low flood risk. Yeah, there is a risk for flooding. There is a risk for flooding. It's not a particularly high one, but there is indeed a risk for flooding. Stand by. Day 3, where's day 1? There we are. Here's day 1. Here's today's flooding risk. So there you go. Mainly metro off to the west. All right. All right, that's all I got. Be the sunshine in someone else's day. Thank you for hanging out for Coffee Talk, friends. I'll see you later. Bye.